Okay, so lesson 3, and we'll be looking at the New Age, African religions, and the spiritual but not religious perspective. And that will fall under, they all sort of fall into sort of the New Age type thing. But that was sort of a late inclusion, the last bit. Anyway, we'll jump right in. So we're getting to New Age, some statistics. In the US, it's only about 0.4% of adults identified with New Age beliefs. Probably way more than that, but that's just what they've put down to identify themselves. So it's only various, like compared to their population, quite small. In Australia, there's no section for New Age on the census, but there is a section of no religion so described. So maybe there's a portion of that. So that's the challenge. There's not really much information about, because it's such a diverse movement and very decentralized. There's no like one organization necessarily to say I identify with that. So it's hard to sort of say how many there is. And that's just like adherents, people would say. But like I said, I think you're going to see some things that are New Age that have sort of crept into society in the way people think as well. So it's not necessarily.
Just a bit over 200,000 people say they didn't have a religion.
Well, yeah, no religion so described. So
what is the so described?
So described. I think the religion. You know how they have a bunch of religions mentioned. Yeah, and then so like probably one not from that. Maybe some total. Yeah.
So do they have atheist knowledge? Like, I just find it.
I think no religion. Just no religion is what the atheists would use. But I think because this one says no religion so described, there's nothing. Yeah, it's not Catholic. It's not one of the mainline sort of denominations, or it's some other religion that's not mentioned.
So they still hold to a
They hold.
religion, there's just
Yeah,
one that
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
We're all having there.
Yeah.
So the reason that the US statistic, is that where it started?
Well, you're going to find it's a lot of like Western, it started in the Western sort of thinking.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the origins. So emerged, like New Age movement as a term, emerged in 1970s and 80s. It has a blend of Eastern mysticism, so we looked a little bit at Hinduism, Buddhism, stuff like that.
all the Americans that went in.
That's right, yeah, and they took the things back. So they mixed in some of those elements, some Western esotericism, so like Gnosticism and a few other groups like that, sort of from the Western side, and then sort of some countercultural movements as well that happened in that time as well. So the historical and modern trends in spirituality and philosophy. So that's the next. Yeah, those are the influences there. So the historical foundations. So, the Eastern mysticism. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, a lot of the Eastern religions. Some of the thought and the concepts found in those religions were taken. The Theosophical Society, which is another big one that was influential in this. And that's a group that was, a society that was founded in 1875 by a Russian lady, Helena Blavatsky. And so she's the founder of that Theosophical Society. And that sort of laid the foundation for the modern New Age thinking, and it introduced more to the Western world the concepts of reincarnation and spiritual evolution and all this like hidden knowledge, things like that, which was really just seen as an Eastern thing, but now was brought into sort of the modern Western world by these groups. And various esoteric and occultic groups, so Gnosticism, you got the sort of the Freemasonry groups, Rosicrucianism, all these like sort of hidden groups, and it's a mixture of all these various beliefs as well. So So that's the roots of it. Some of,
Sorry,
yep.
quick question on the last side. What's the Reconstructionism?
Oh, it's just a secret group. So if I go back,
It's like Freemasons.
yeah. So
The Freemasons is not a secret group.
well,
There's a group with
yeah,
no secrets.
yeah.
Everybody knows who's in it.
Yeah, there's we know a lot of information now because a lot of people who were in there sort of let information, they sort of leaked some of that information. Yeah, they're a similar group, but yeah, it's all like sort of about hidden knowledge and stuff like this. But yeah, I believe it means the Rosy Cross. The Rosy Cross, yeah, Rosicrucianism, yeah. But you can look at what the ones, right? Yeah. Yeah. Some of the cultural and social context. So obviously, so if we're saying that it emerged in the 70s and 80s, what happened before that? So in the 1960s.
Research on the Rosicrucian.
Oh, I didn't look too much into it. I sort of a quick summary. Yeah, I didn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all disciples of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So it's one of those. And there's multiple groups like that have, and they sort of we have the knowledge, and yeah, that's their appeal. But in the 60s, we find that there was few cultural and social things that occurred that may have led to sort of the rise or popularization of the New Age movement. So we had the Vietnam War, a lot of the stuff that was happening there, sort of the countercultural things, certain upheavals in civil rights movement, general disillusionment with traditional institutions or religions and things like that. And then we also have introduction of concepts of transcendental meditation and things like that by Mahesh Yogi. So he introduced this, and that sort of got him more popular, and people got into, okay, what is this? Where's this from? And yeah, it sort of led to this.
Hollywood done well with them.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like you said, there's a lot of Eastern influence, and so this guy, I think he would be from India, or one of those places, and would have brought in those views and those concepts. Yeah. So that's a little bit about the cultural and social context of why it may, what may have led to the people taking up these views. The next. Yep.
So I'm guessing that Maharishi guys, where we got yoga from? The whole big.
Well, I think that's already a Hindu sort of concept already. Yoga, I'm guessing it's may have to do because he's maybe like a practitioner of yoga, and so therefore he brought that to the Western world and sort of introduced it and made it, But the thing is, with that, it came with a lot of other. Oh well, if you do that, you need to learn this, and you need to understand this, and so it brings all this other stuff. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah. Okay. Continuing. Yeah. Also. Yeah. Okay. So the term New Age itself references a transition. What they would say from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. So it's all the horoscope sort of stuff, and so they believe that this new age the age of Aquarius was to herald a new spiritual enlightenment in the world. Yeah. And so it's supposed to be some enlightenment, unity, global transformation. So that's, we've passed from this age, now we're in this new age, that term comes from. Yeah, so that's a little bit about, and so again, that's another aspect. There's the astrological significance. So again, they're appealing to, there's astrology, there's all these various different things that are part of it. It's kind of a mixture. Yeah.
So when did this supposedly happen, this transition?
I'm guessing I didn't look at the date, but I'm guessing it's happened around the time that they started getting popular, so the 70s, 80s, that period. Yeah, because that's when the term was introduced. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, and these are some of the key figures of not just the New Age, but also the very, very happy people. So that's Blavatsky. That's the one that's in the 1875. The Theosophical Society. So she laid a lot of the foundation for that. And she's originally from Russia, but there's some disagreement whether she went or not, but she claimed that she went to India and went to a few different places, Tibet, to learn all these different things from the gurus there. And then I'm pretty sure she went to America and established the society there. This guy's just another author. He just wrote certain books concerning New Age. She's also wrote some books as well, but I found out she was actually an actor as well.
Yeah, she's really good.
Yeah, so she wrote a few books about the New Age and all that, and I think, yeah. And
Her and her brother.
okay, yeah.
They poured a lot of money into it.
Yeah, they were
But they
really
made a
into
lot
it.
of money out of it.
Yeah. And this lady, Alice Bailey, she sort of took over from Blavatsky after she passed away. She took over of that Theosophical Society. And so, yeah, these are some of the key figures in this movement, or laid the foundation for this movement to arise. Yeah. Okay. Some of the key developments. So they are a decentralized movement. So there's no, unlike traditional religions, it's not organized, or there's no hierarchy necessarily. Basically, it's a network of just loosely connected ideas, various practices, groups, whatever. They just sort of pick and choose what they want. Some are more into the astrology side of things, some are more into the yoga, and all this different. Yeah, and we'll look a bit more on their practices as well. Also, the cultural integration as well. So, they've integrated or permeated well into Western culture. So they influenced. And not to say these things are necessarily wrong, but they've infiltrated a lot of these things. So the holistic health movement. So sure, there's probably some good in that, but the thing is, when you go to these places, it's filled with all this new agey sort of stuff. So they sort of influenced that. Now that's almost become, if you say holistic health, people automatically think new age beliefs. Environmentalism as well, interestingly enough. And I think you see that as well. Look, like the root of it, yeah, good. Environment, look after environment, great. But now it's become sort of a worship of the environment rather than just, as a creation. Yeah. And then just popular media as well. And there's various, look at Hollywood and some of the things that it produces. A lot of it, leans towards a new age type of thinking. Yeah, so that's some of the developments of the New Age. Some of the key beliefs. So this is a bit more interesting now, what they actually believe, and obviously, again, it's a diverse group. So these are sort of just the general ideas of what the majority would hold to. So in regard to the nature of God, again, similar to some of the other Eastern religions we looked at, like Hinduism and Buddhism, they hold to like a monism, which all existence is one, and it's a unified reality. So it's basically all existence is one. There's no distinction between the physical and the spiritual necessarily. Everything is interconnected. Individual identity sort of merges with, goes towards merging with the universal essence. And so that's their view of God. So it's basically a pantheism as well. So there's an impersonal divine force which is present in everything. Which again, look how we've already looked before, and you can see the similarities already in the thinking of the nature of God here. I guess the other thing that they are more emphasize is the next thing is the personal divinity. So I didn't really see this too much in necessarily with Hinduism and Buddhism. Probably less with Buddhism because they don't believe in necessarily a god. But with the New Age sort of focuses on that you can become like a god-like. So you can, so individuals are considered divine by nature and capable of realizing their god-like potential. So everyone has the god-like potential because you are.
How do you become a god?
I guess it's it's I guess some state that they just think they realize it's probably later after death type of thing. I'm not sure if it's if it's like in this life. I'm not sure. Maybe there are some who believe they've achieved that and they're just waiting.
Well, at Open Doors, we've had a few people saying
Yeah.
that we're all gods.
Yeah. So it's the realization that and basically what it is they want people to realize that. So you realize that you have that godlike potential, and so therefore you do these various practices, and that will just open you up more to that potential and that power. So whereas that's why we see all the psychic stuff, all the astrology, all the bunch of things, and there seems to be a power behind it, which is interesting enough. Obviously, I think it's an evil power.
Well, and it's
But-
interesting that it's obviously Satan, and that's what got kicked out of him.
Yeah.
Trying to be like the most.
Yeah, that's right. Even if it's, and this is probably more out there saying we are God, whereas the other religions, let's just say, like Islam or, the sort of the bigger religions that we find, well, in a sense, they're saying that they're God too, because they are attempting to get saved through their own works. So that's really just probably a subtle way of saying it, but this was just saying it, you are a God, and that potential, that power comes out through the various practices and becoming more aware of yourself and things like that. But whether or not, I don't know if there's a point where they realize that. Maybe it's just, I don't know, like they just feel like they have reached that point. Maybe it's, and it wouldn't really make any difference if it's like an afterlife, because if they believe that everything's sort of connected and it doesn't really, this is just one form of how we're existing, and we'll just transition to the spiritual sort of form. Maybe we'll come back because of reincarnation, things like that. Yeah.
Do you gain anything from this process?
Well, I guess it's more just because about realizing your God potential, your godlike potential. So then there's like a striving for power, and whatever that is, I don't know, but through their self-awareness, that's sort of that's what they're striving for. The more self-aware, the more they tap into this power, then they're becoming more.
In my mind,
linked.
as Christians,
Yeah.
we know that the more Christ-like we become,
Yeah.
obviously not God,
Yeah.
the more like Him we
Yeah.
become, the more joy, peace, love,
Sure.
that we have.
Yeah.
But what do they get from?
I guess there would be a sort of a moral sort of look at it, saying, oh, maybe we're better people, and I guess that might go into the belief in karma as well, because they do hold to that as well. So which would be sort of their way of, okay, how do we, what is good, what is bad, and the bad karma, good karma. That will probably what lead them to live in that way, I would say. But because they're godlike, I guess the difference there with the Christians being Christ-like and then them feeling that they're godlike is that they actually believe, because again, going back to the nature of God here, it's just a divine force, and they are just part of that, just in a different form. But for whatever reason, they don't know that, and then you have to go on this path of realizing that power, and so you're basically just an extension of the divine, rather than
Which is just a force.
yeah. Whereas as Christians, we believe, well, we just created beings. We're not God. We're separate from God, but He gives us His power. It's external. It's given to us. It's not. We don't inherently have it. Like
So
Yeah.
this personal divinity is more like you have this full. You are a force. not
Yeah.
as in
You're sort of already, because everything is part of this reality. It's just one big reality. It's unified, and so you're not really an individual. You just sort of
force.
and basically the path of the New Age is to become more self-aware in that power, and
So it's pretty messed up.
through, yeah, one with the Force, yeah. But yeah, basically, yeah, because that has a lot of Eastern ideas as well. Okay. Another key belief, their view of humanity. So we already sort of touched upon this, but yeah, inherently, divinity, divine. Every human is divine and has the potential to tap into this divinity. Like I already mentioned this. Obviously, the Christian understanding of humanity is fallen is due to sin. It's not that we are not. So they would say, I guess their version of the humans, the fallen condition is that they don't know their potential. That's basically, and then so they need to know that. The New Age movement also teaches individuals are not separate from God, but an extension of the divine essence. So again, we already touched sort of upon that. And yeah, it leads to a self-deification. So that actor that we're talking about, she's quoted as saying, "I am God." And that's again, that's
so
just
like you decide.
yeah. You basic. It's very subjective. It's very It's not really.
So if you're a god and you never realize you're a god, what happens?
Well, you're not on the path of being. Yeah, you're missing out on your potential. You're not tapping into that power that you could have.
So gods are not immortal then, because like they all died.
Yes, I guess they would also. I guess that would be they'll say the physical. It's sort of just transition into a different form of that. So you still exist, but you're probably more. It's more in the form of that force. Yeah, and other people believe in like the reincarnation as well. And so this is another thing that I found out during that interview. One view of the reincarnation is like, do you just sort of? It's not. Well, this person said that they don't just keep going back and forth. They just sort of stay in this place, in the ether or whatever it is, and you sort of just wait and decide if you should go back or not to fix something or to change something. And she claimed, well, she was basically saying that you also just stay with one group of people, which is why people say, we knew each other in a different life and things like that. And so, yeah, and again, there's going to be diverse views on that because it's such a, it's not, there's, again, there's so many different views. I'm not sure.
She's pretty old if she was.
Yeah, like from when I was researching, it looked like she was an actor a while ago. I probably not. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I would guess not. Yeah. But just that phrase, that basically encapsulates everything that they sort of believe. And and I guess if you're a god, and this would sort of lodge.
She's 90.
Is she still alive? Oh, okay. Wow. So if you're a god, if you really believe that, then that's why a lot of this stuff is sort of subjective, and I don't want to be held down by various beliefs, because I can do it. I'm a god. I can create my own reality. I can do my own. Anyway. Okay. Which is interesting again, how we see some of that thought into today's culture as well. Continuing. So basically, human beings are seen as possessing unlimited inner potential. And this is realized through a spiritual awakening, which is done through those practices that we'll look at. That's how they achieve this higher consciousness. There's all these different various terms: higher consciousness, spiritual awakening, all these things, and it's basically just a self-discovery, just realizing. And I got all various other things concerning cosmic energy, high vibrations, and there's all different things. And look, again, there is a whole thing about frequencies and things like that as well. Like, so this is the thing. They take bits of truth and then it's taken to a ridiculous point. Anyway.
So can you do wrong things in here? So is lying, murdering, and all that considered wrong?
I guess that might fall under the whole karma thing, and I guess again this would fall, just because again there's no one central group. some might believe in that karma, and some might not.
Because if you're a god,
And they might
you
just
can
think,
say-
well, murder, we just don't do that because, like most people say, it's just not helpful for the human society. So again, it's hard to say if they all believe that, because again, there's a lot of difference and diversity within their beliefs. But again, if you just know sort of their basic beliefs here, then you can sort of follow logically where they will,
Would they,
follow.
would they
Yeah.
come under people that say, like I've spoken to people and they're like, I don't believe in God, but I believe in the spirit out there. Would that come under your way?
Yeah.
Like, I believe I'm spiritual. I'm not.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to look at the end. So there's a group of people who say that they're spiritual but not religious, and then we'll look into that.
Yeah.
But it's basically
So
our
it's
growth.
the
It basically came from this.
Yeah.
So this is sort of the root of that. Yeah. Okay. Continuation. So liberation. Again, view of humanity. So they see liberation from external authority. So they reject traditional religious doctrines or moral codes. Again, you're going to look at, which is
Is that all external authority? Like, do they believe that the government can...
there's
make
probably
laws?
to certain degrees, because if you look at sort of, let's just say, I guess stereotype now, but if we're looking at sort of the hippie movement or some of the new age people we see, like they don't tend to like government, they don't tend to like any sort of established authority. Sure, they might live under it to a certain degree, but the thought is more negative towards government than live free, do what you want, like it's just
Be love.
exactly.
Was it upstate New York or something? Where they had all the
Yeah.
festivals.
Well, this is
Yeah, very-
do
yeah.
what they will for the whole.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it does ring a bell. So instead of individuals encouraged to, so they're basically just encouraged to look within themselves, which makes sense because you're a god. So if you want to know what's right, just look into yourself. Whatever you come up is, so look into yourselves for guidance. Basically embrace the idea that truth and morality are just subjective and they're just self-determined. Again, which is logically follows from their belief that they are a god. So it's you can see there's a relativistic approach to truth and reality. It's just again personal experience, personal experience and intuition takes precedence over objective standards or some moral code. There's no 10 commandments, let's say. They just make it up themselves. Okay, the view of Jesus, because Jesus does come up, interesting enough, in the New Age movement. So they basically just believe, so they don't believe he's the incarnate Son of God, but they believe that he's a highly enlightened spiritual teacher who achieved a high level of divine consciousness. So that's their view of Jesus. So he's basically just a spiritual model. Yeah, a good person, a high. They use the term an ascended master, which will come up later. So they view his life and teachings as just basic universal spiritual principles. They don't see him as necessarily what he did or said as prophecy or fulfillment. They don't see it as that. They just see it as just good principles for us to follow. For good things. He did good things. And the power he had was just because he was more realized in his godlike potential and things like that. Which basically lowers him down to any other teacher in the earth as well. Basically a guru.
So have any of the other gurus, and I mean like obviously from all the different religions that these people draw from, have they ever made claims of being able to perform miracles?
I can't think of a specific one, but from what I understand, there have been the sort of displays of power within their community, which to me I would say, okay, well, if you're the enemy, and to a degree you have some power that was basically given to you, and this is a lot of different sort of you can say this for a lot of different groups, even like the Catholics, you could say. But let's just say a healing or something is performed and it actually works.
Yes.
Well, what does that do? Well, that makes me, well, you must be right. You know, that reinforces or confirms that what you're saying must be true. It's like a, you know,
Yes.
which is why the Bible tells us not to trust in those things. And so, for example, like people say, oh, how do the Catholics do the exorcisms? How does that seemingly work?
Yeah.
Well, okay, if a Catholic does it, then I'm thinking, oh, they got it right. You know, that's God's on their side. He's actually using them. And so, but the thing is, Muslims have exorcists as well. Buddhists have, for whatever reason, they have a form of that as well. So there's things that happen, and people, I guess, wouldn't follow if nothing didn't happen.
Yeah, because there is a power.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of the lying signs and wonders that the Bible speaks about.
It's like in Egypt when
Yeah.
the Egyptians.
Yeah, that's right.
did
Yeah, they copied to a certain point. They could mimic those miracles, those plagues. Yeah. So I think that's what we find in these groups, and yeah, I would say the reason why people still follow them is because there's some display of power. Which goes back to, I was just thinking about recently about the prophets of Baal and how they were convinced that their God would send fire,
They wouldn't have done that.
and they were cutting themselves and doing all this stuff, and to me that shows they were so convinced that this was going to actually happen. Did something happen in the previously that they had that such confidence? Possible, but it's just interesting to know we just think, oh, just silly people believe these things. Well, there must be some reason why, not just because it sounds good, but there might be some appeal, a spiritual appeal to
But
it.
if you get somebody coming along and he teaches the first generation,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the third or fourth
Yeah.
generation, the first one's gone.
Yep.
This is what our ancestors did.
Yeah. And sure, I think there's a lot of that as well. I think it's a mixture of those things. Because I'm not saying everything is like that, but it sort of makes sense, I think. If they can produce some type of demonstration of power, then it would only help them and keep those people trapped in that belief.
Well,
Which
It's the Jesuit maxim, give
Yeah.
it a child till they're 7
yeah.
and I'll show you the man.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. Yeah, and even more. Let's just say within Christian, the term under the Christian, but like for example, the Pentecostal movement, things like that. Well, all these healings and things occur. Well, now I'm going to believe that what they say on doctrine and what they believe on certain things must be right. And so again, it goes to the extremes, to this New Age, to the Hindus and all that, but even to those who claim Christian as well, yet have different, wrong doctrine and things like that.
I wonder
Just
why these people that do get well don't actually believe what Christ said, your faith has made you whole.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's a whole nother,
they miss it completely.
that's right, yep. But again, it works to basically in favor of the person and their wrong beliefs. So they believe. So many New Age people assert that Jesus' enlightenment was the result of personal spiritual discipline, and basically, he could do it, so you can do it too, and that's where they get to. It's basically attainable for anyone, and so again, they reduce him to just a man who's just self-aware and tapped into his God-like potential, and you can do it too if you just dedicate and become disciplined. A bit more about it. So it's considered one of many ascended masters. So this sort of New Age terminology. Basically an advanced being who transcended physical existence and attained a higher state of consciousness. So that's what they believe. Which, again, puts Christ in the same
like the Muslims just saying he's another prophet.
Well, yeah. And it puts him in the sort of the same level as Buddha and Krishna and all these other various figures, as well as just people who just wise people, spiritual, yeah.
So that's the mark of someone who's attained this higher state of consciousness, is
Mm.
they say what is perceived to be wise things.
Yeah, that would be one of the indicators. Yeah, and I guess this would go back to the whole secret knowledge type of thinking. Well, this person's because they've given they've basically grown to this level. This hidden knowledge is now revealed to them by the universal power, by the force, and so then Jesus came and he revealed these principles. Buddha came and revealed these type of principles, and they sort of just use all those different okay. A bit more about it. So it's syncretized with spiritual leaders and other traditions, like I said. So basically like Buddha and all the other ones. And it gets into a whole different view that some claim that Jesus traveled to India or Tibet to learn some of these mystical truths. So they say, because of the stuff not mentioned about Jesus from his childhood to when his ministry started, so they claim that Jesus went to India or Tibet and learned some of these things there. Which is there's no historical proof. There's no, even what he taught was all based upon the Old Testament. He didn't mention anything about guru so and so. He just
When he was 12 years old, he's already understanding the elders and the.
That's right. And he's referring to the law. He's referring to Old Testament. He's not referring to any other what we can find as Eastern teaching. And so there's no historical proof. There's no biblical proof of that. It's just someone's idea, because it sort of fits. And so his teachings are often stripped for their theological content, just reframed as universal wisdom. So again, because they don't believe he is the Son of God, so therefore there's nothing we can learn. And again, it goes back to their view of God. They don't believe there's a separate thing. So again, they're just using his teachings as universal wisdom and whatever. Something that you can use now so you can, in your journey of becoming self-aware. Okay. Salvation. I guess what the closest thing to what they think is salvation is seen as a internal journey, again, to discover oneself. So there's self-realization, there's karma, there's meditation and visualization as well. Self-realization is just basically breaking free from that ignorance and achieving the ignorance of not knowing your godlike potential and achieving a spiritual awakening. Karma is basically what we've already looked at in the other beliefs. And then meditation here is basically seen as a tool, visualization, affirmations, basically to align yourself with the universe and to manifest various outcomes. So you basically go into the state and you think, okay, I want this to happen. And it seems to be a word that people use, like I've manifested it. And so that's basically comes from this, just some silly example. I want this car. And you just, in this meditative state, you just focus on that. And so you're trying to create your reality. Which is all basically, and you've got like things like The Secret and a few other books like that sort of tap into that as well. You just keep saying it. And even, again, the whole charismatic movement, and to name it and claim it, you just name, I want to be healed, I will be healed, and you'll get healed. That's again, it's all linked to all this stuff, in various degrees. Which is interesting, because in the same time, the whole charismatic movement was big in the 70s and in the 80s. They got the second wave, they call it. Yeah, so it's interesting how it's a similar time. Yeah, okay. The afterlife, so basically just reincarnation. So individuals can undergo multiple lives to evolve spiritually. There's no heaven, eternal heaven or hell. It's basically just a cycle of rebirth until oneness with the divine is achieved. And this oneness is basically achieved by recognizing and aligning with the belief that everything, humans, nature, universe, is all connected and basically just one. So maybe you've heard of the word oneness type. Everything is just one, and we've got to become one with the universe. And the goal is basically cosmic consciousness. That's what it's referred to when you've reached some unity with the universe or divine essence. That's basically what it's called, cosmic conscious. And there's various things like this. So, we've already looked at. So, spiritual awakening is becoming aware of your nature. They have another thing called energy work, which is the yoga, the visualization, the crystals, and all this stuff as well. And I guess a more Buddhist belief here would be the letting go of your individual ego, and basically embracing the idea that you're just part of the whole thing. Yeah. 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 Okay. Truth and reality basically is just relativism. Truth is subjective and personal. There is no absolutes, which is an absolute statement. Each individual creates their own reality based on beliefs and intentions. There's another thing here called cosmic evolutionary optimism, which is the belief that humanity is progressing towards a new age of enlightenment. There's peace and harmony, and basically there will be a future utopia, which is to be expected through this awakening, which is more the global scale. I guess their form of the millennium. Basically, the millennium where everything is just harmonious and everything is set. Yeah. I guess it's basically when everyone has come to this point where they realize this, and they all now become unified with this divine essence. And so therefore the earth. No. Just because it's continuing, right? Reincarnation. But the earth now it's been basically the gospel of the new age has gone out. Yeah, and everyone's believing it.
So, if each individual creates their own reality based on their beliefs, what happens if your beliefs are diametrically opposed to my beliefs?
Yeah, and this is something you could bring up with it. Yeah, because it's again, there's that's what I find. It's an inconsistency with their belief, because how do you, once you start imposing upon someone else's reality, what happens there? And I think it might be one of the questions, the counter questions that I will put up. Yeah, right. But it's again, that's probably something that you can use. A question you can use when speaking to someone who holds to that. I just create my own reality. I just make my own. Yeah, and that's what you say. Well, what happens if it impedes in someone or breaches someone else's reality? I don't know. I don't know how they reconcile that.
So I'm struggling to reconcile.
Yeah.
Like if I walked up to someone that had this belief, and slapped them across the face, that they would not have imagined that for themselves. So how do they explain that?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I don't know if they are either.
Yeah.
Would they tell you in a new age? Like has
Oh, there's probably some, who would say they are, who would, I guess, adherence to this. I'm new agey. Or there's probably other groups that with different names, which sort of came from this. I don't know if there was just I'm new age. Maybe some will. I'm sure there'll be many that would. But the whole view, they might not claim necessarily New Age, but people, whether they know it or not, are holding to some of these beliefs. You know, the whole manifesting thing, or the whole, you know, I can create my own reality and things like that. That's all comes from this. They may not claim to be in a New Age or follow that stuff, but some of these concepts are now so immersed in society that people don't even think about it, you know. They just say it, you know. Like even with the whole thing, I know people probably say it as a joke, but you know, the universe is telling me something, you know. That's all from this. And a lot of people might just be, you know, jokingly saying that, but that whole idea is coming from all this stuff.
So then this cosmic evolutionary optimism, they all believe that the world is actually getting better.
Yes, yes. So they believe they expect
That's
at
the
some
reality.
point, yeah. So now everyone's, I guess the argument they could say is that everyone's now to the point that we're all our realities and everything is just unified and become one. Maybe there's a point where that all becomes morphed into one big, and it all just agrees and it's unified. I don't know. Maybe that's one way I could think of how they would might answer that. But yeah, and that's the thing. Again, it's all because they pick bits and pieces of different religions and different groups. One person again might heavily lean into this belief. Some people are like, oh, I don't really hold to that. You know, there's no real unity in it. Interestingly enough, because that's what they're seeking.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's no real.
No real harmony.
Yeah, exactly. Which is funny because they're proud that it's not a centralized. Which you would think if you want to become harmonious and central, like, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Okay. Okay. Some of their practices now. So meditation, visualization, yoga, astrology, channeling and spiritual guides, which is interesting as well. Going back to that interview I mentioned earlier, this lady claimed that she just does automatic writing. So the guide, she's led by some spirit guide, which is, to me, when she was explaining it, it just sounded like a demon. Because it's like this thing, she actually gave it a name, and it just basically, she just writes whatever it says. It's just, yeah, so that's channeling.
Which is interesting, because a lot of the rock stars and all that say they have the same thing.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
lyrics just
That's right, yeah. Yeah, so you got all that.
It kind of goes right against having your own mind to think what you want about everything.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
else is telling you what to do.
Yeah, it's a strange...
yeah, they're very much not free and under the influence of
Oh,
these
definitely,
things.
yeah. And again, it's not to say necessarily they all would do this. There will be some who probably lean towards more this stuff than others, you know. Yeah, so you got crystal healing, energy healing and holistic therapies. So I don't know if you've seen, like, you know, you go past those, you go Reiki or things like that, aura cleansing, just another thing, like, yeah, energy fields of the body.
Aura cleansing.
Yeah, aura cleansing, yeah.
Come closer.
Yeah, tarot cards and divination as well. That's a bit more on that psychic side of things.
That's my business.
Yeah. I don't know how, you know, when you go, I don't know if you've ever seen, but in South Bank, how they have the markets there, and there's always people there. There's a tent that's always for psychic readings. I'm just like, how do people, you know, they could be saying anything to you.
Yeah.
They make it so general.
Yeah.
You can make it apply to you.
Yeah.
You know,
Tomorrow you're going to breathe.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some who are just doing it just for money and it's just a trick, but there's probably some who are just,
think they're legit.
yeah, or just, you know, even empowered by bad things and using that, you know, so it's just all deception, really, and leads people to a false belief.
I talked to one lady at work, she went to
Mm.
one, and like a person tells you your future, not your
Yeah.
future, and she told me, Simone was her name, and she told me, like, what did they say? And I said, oh, in my past life, right, this is
Yep,
how
yep.
creepy she told me, in my past life, I used to drown people.
And
Yeah.
to drown people.
So Simone, this whatever future person, whatever, told Simone, she went to her, paid money, and this woman said to her, in your past life, you used to drown people, that's why you have a fear of water now. Like, she's like, I'm like, do you have a fear of water?
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I don't swim much, I wouldn't go, like, I don't love water.
Yeah.
Like, she, see how she related it to
Yeah,
her?
yeah, yeah.
And then I said to her, I'm like, oh, Simone, that really just sounds evil. Like,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sounds like evil, like
Did
things.
she tell
Exactly,
you
yeah.
what the future was? Or
No.
just their past?
Nah, just past. But
You
she
just
probably
Yeah.
say the
present,
past,
but
aren't you? You can say whatever
she
you want.
didn't, yeah, she didn't want the future stuff. Like, she paid this woman money to tell her
That's
that in her
just-
past life she used to drown people in water.
Wonderful.
I don't know
Yeah.
whether she was some sort of person, like.
Yeah. No, but yeah, that's the kind of stuff that that comes up. Yeah, they do claim from, again, going back to this interview, I learned a lot from this. That there was, they can read say that the past is easy to read, the present, but the future is not clear to them because there's things that can change and
Because they
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
know
so
what
they're
it
not-
What else
doesn't
in
work.
reality got in the way?
yeah. So anyway, so again, these are various things that they do.
Would you say like people with paranormal, like people that believe paranormal stuff? Would you say that's New Age as well?
Oh, I think there's an aspect to it.
People
Yeah.
like, I'm spiritual, but I can sense something in this place.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's
Yeah.
just that because
Okay,
you got
so not
different
just weirdos.
you got different beliefs. You got different beliefs. Well, the Bible does talk about there's spiritual darkness, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. So there's obviously something out there.
Yeah.
These various groups, whether they know it or not, they are aligned to these things.
Yeah.
Like I said, probably by and large, a lot of people are just in it and just doing it, maybe just self-deceived or deceived by others, and they just feel just make them feel good. Yeah, and there's probably others who are really into it, very deep in the spiritual side of things as well. So again, you have different aspects of it. Yeah, I just find this last one, this sacred nature and environmentalism, quite interesting because I guess what we hear a lot today, it's nature is seen as sacred, connected with humanity. There's basically they practice rituals honoring the earth, seeking ways to live harmony with the environment and things like that. A whole bunch of nature retreats and walking meditations, ceremonies and things like that. And I remember, I think more in the Sunshine Coast area, there's a lot of that's another place, a lot of retreats, but it's all like geared towards a new, like meditation and sort of stuff like that. Yeah. So.
Down in the northern rivers, there's a lot of areas where you buy into they're communes,
Yep.
and you can buy into I don't know who owns the entire property, but you buy your
Right.
section.
Yeah.
That's part of this commune, and interestingly enough, they've got certain rules that you have to meet to live in the commune.
Yeah.
But
Interesting. Yeah.
and it's very environmental.
Of course. Yeah.
Um,
And like I said, like it's fine. Look up and that's good. But when you start worshipping it, and you start doing it,
Key figures in environmentalism are actually New Agers.
Yeah.
It's interesting, a lot of their houses owner built and don't meet the codes.
Yes. Yeah.
Which obviously goes with that whole we're our own authority.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So again, some of the practices that they do, and all these things they're doing, again, to get to that level where they can become more, realized and conscious. Okay. Now look at the Christian response to some of these views. So I guess the first one is about the concept of God. Obviously, the Christian view is God is personal, sovereign, and distinct from creation, and that He is holy, relational, and transcendent as well. Obviously the New Age, the whole impersonal force thing, and then there's no distinction between creator and creation. The New Age, but whereas Christians believe He's personal, He's sovereign, He's distinct from creation. He's also relational. He's not a distant, his yeah. Some of the counter. So instead of just so I just put for these responses just some counter questions or arguments that, again, maybe we could discuss or we could just use. If we ever come into contact with anyone who believes this type of stuff. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's in the New Age, but again, like I said, because some of these views are so now, embedded in society, people just say these things without even knowing. And again, these questions might come up. So the first sort of question I have is, if God is impersonal, how do you explain the human desire for personal relationships and love? Could this reflect the nature of a personal creator? So that God is personal, he's relational, that's something that we get from him. And so how do they explain personal relationships and also the concept of love with others? And so reflecting nature of the personal creator. So that's one thing. And it doesn't have to be, this is just certain things that I've sort of come across or put together. The other one is, if everything is God, how do you address the problem of evil in the world? Is evil divine too? Because everything is God, while evil people, let's just say, and if they claim evil, that thing is evil, well, that goes in against sort of what they believe, because that's all part of God, or the God force. So how will they explain that or address that issue?
Do they believe in a negative dark force?
There's probably, because if they believe in energies and things like that, but still, it doesn't really. What was I going to say? Yeah, it still says even that negative energy is still part of the God essence. So it doesn't really. So why not just accept it, embrace it? Yeah. I guess this is the.
thing there with a lot of these religions is that God or the gods can be both good and evil.
Yeah. I guess it's, I guess we'd have to go a bit more deep into their thinking. I don't know if they have questions on that, but again, some of these questions may be good just to bring up and see, make them think, or make them. I guess going back to when we did the whole, the last subject we did about the gospel, and talking to the lost and things like that, is to get. Don't be the one that you have to be explaining everything. Get them to explain what they believe, because when they start explaining what they believe, then you can use what they are saying to again, interject with the gospel or something like that. And it may even unravel when they're trying to explain their own. It may unravel their own thinking, like, oh, well, do I actually believe this? So, same thing with the questions you're asking. It's more to get out what they sort of think, and then from their responses, how we can use the gospel to talk to them. Yeah, the Isaiah 5:20 passages says, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." So that's basically what they're doing, calling, because it's all God, and you can say God is good and all these things. And so if evil is part of this reality, then that must be God as well. Yep. Okay. Next one is Jesus. So as Christians, we believe that he's the eternal Son of God, fully divine and fully human. And he reconciled humanity to God through his death and resurrection. And his claim is that he is the only way to the Father. So that's his claim.
So how do they reconcile that?
Which will be one of the questions. That's what we put. So that was just.
Probably just write it off as the Bible's
Oh, that's just one interpretation or whatever.
Well, it's a bit hard.
It's hard because it just says that.
And the truth, and the way,
Yeah.
and the life.
yeah, maybe they will say for that time. You know, I don't know. Yeah, so that's the Christian view. And then we have the counter arguments to that, possible ones. You know, Jesus claimed to be the way, the truth, the life. How do you reconcile this with the New Age view that there are many paths to the divine? And then, if Jesus is just a spiritual model, how did he emphasize his mission to save humanity from sin and death? Why did he, emphasize his mission to save humanity from sin and death?
Jesus had lots of rules.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the whole Sermon on the Mount.
Exactly. Yeah.
A whole heap of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where they got their opinion of Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I think that's why they sort of just take, okay, oh, that sounds good. That sort of would fit. So they can't take everything. If they want to be consistent, they're not taking everything. Yeah, and again, that's why it's just reduced to just universal principles. Sort of some of these things are like very, yeah, they're not. Obviously, they're not interpreting correctly, obviously, but just taking whatever sounds good and may fit their view. Yeah. Okay. Salvation. So Christian's view addresses humanity's sins problem and restores a relationship with God. It's a Christian view. The counter arguments or questions that could be used is, if salvation is based on self-enlightenment, how do you address human limitations and moral failures? So that's just, again, they'll probably have some answer for that, but again, it's appealing to the whole, if we are God-like or, you know, have the potential, why are we so limited? And I guess you could, and I guess their answer would be like, well, they're not realized enough. But again, that's something you could bring up. How does New Age salvation offer a solution to guilt, sin, and death? Christianity provides a clear and hopeful answer through Christ. I guess, yeah. Again, you could bring up, how do they deal with that stuff? And again, if you have other questions, that, feel free to share them as well. Yeah. Or if you've come across and you've found something that works, or yeah. Okay, the other one, afterlife. So in Christian views, eternal life is promised to those who believe in Jesus Christ, while judgment awaits those who reject him. The counter arguments to the view here is, how does reincarnation provide justice for evil deeds if there is no clear accountability? Yeah, so again, you could bring up that. How do they judge that? Which is, there's no real, in truth, there is no real way they can know who's actually making these decisions, if it's just the force. Yeah, and that Hebrews touches, basically you live once, you die, and then you face judgment. That's basically the Christian view.
They don't really have a system of justice, do they?
No, it wouldn't be,
Yeah,
because
which is what I don't know.
that's
It
right,
seems to be
yeah.
what it's really saying.
Yeah,
Then you say it's wrong, but I say
Mm.
it's fine.
yeah, which is why this question would be interesting to ask them, like, how do you reconcile
Yeah,
this?
because if there's this guy and I don't know, he killed like 3 people,
Mm.
that's not wrong. It's just
Yeah, that's his reality. Yeah. Okay.
Encouraging anarchy.
Yeah. Truth and reality. The Bible consistently teaches moral and spiritual absolutes that are essential for life and godliness. And so the counter questions could be, if truth is relative, how can we discern right from wrong in society? Doesn't the concept of justice require absolutes? And how can subjective truth bring coherence and meaning to life? Christianity offers a consistent and unchanging foundation for truth. It's, again, to go through life, you need to have absolutes. Like, for example, the time. I'll meet, you're at 12 o'clock. Well, that's you believe 12 o'clock, I believe 12 o'clock. It's, yeah. Yeah, but there's still a absolute to that, you know, like
This is what we were talking about. A guy about he was a Sikh.
yeah.
Open doors, and he was all into this sort of stuff. He's like, but your reality could be different from my reality. I don't even know if you're standing in front of me. I could just be in some other conscious. And Dad said to him, well, what about your wife? You know, she's waiting for you. He's like, I don't know. She could not be. That's just silly. I think they believe that in here, but you know, well, there's going to be a car in the driveway tomorrow. There's going to be my job that I go to.
Yeah, your world is full of absolutes. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But he was trying to tell us,
Like,
well, I
even
don't
the
even know
whole
if he exists.
Order of the universe.
Yeah.
The the sun. Yeah,
Sense.
we're going. We're all that.
Everything's absolute.
It's all so it's
It's all just in their mind.
which is interesting because if the universe is, you know, the way they put it as like some input personal force type thing. Well, yeah, it would be like like you mentioned before, just a chaos. There will be nothing. You wouldn't be able to rely on anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it doesn't really fit with reality.
But
Yeah.
everything they use has order.
Exactly.
Like if
Yeah.
you use a washing machine,
Yeah.
the parts have got to be in the right place. For them to
Exactly.
work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I wonder how. I would like to see how they answer that.
Next week, bring one with you.
Yeah. Bring a test subject. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, again, these are things that it's good for us to think about, and this is why, again, the whole point of this subject is to know why they believe, like what they believe, so then we can sort of think through. Okay, well, and if you ever come, you know, obviously we have the gospel ready to share, but then also realizing some of the hindrances or barriers that people have because of various concepts or beliefs that they hold to. And knowing that we could question us, you know, and yeah, again, these are all different strategies we can use.
this is the most bizarre one yet.
Okay, we're just working our way. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the New Age section. So okay. Any questions before we move on? African religions.
I don't think there's an answer.
No, there's.
Any question on this one?
All right. Okay. So African religions. Obviously, we don't have as much information about this stuff, but I can give you what I found. Some statistics, again, similar to the whole New Age thing. It's not very clear. There's a lot of challenges because it's so diverse and so we. 98.7 million in Africa would sort of claim to traditional religions in that area.
Do they tend to keep following their if they immigrate to a different country? that's
Yeah,
outside
I couldn't
Africa,
find
do they
any.
tend to keep-
Yeah,
I don't know that I haven't really seen any.
yeah, like there's probably like things they hold to, but and there's probably reflected in this, I couldn't find any information like in Australian census or anything like that. So maybe that's a reflection of that. They sort of left that because that's over there. That's what we did there.
Yeah.
You know, we don't do that here anymore because we live here. Or you know, maybe that's that thinking. But yeah, I didn't really find too much. The reason why I did add it in is because I guess when we find and I haven't really personally haven't too much contact, but from what I heard and seen in different things, even if there's a form of Christianity there's Christianity, but it's plus some of these things, cultural things. And I guess you're going to find that in a lot of places around the world, not just Africa. But that's why I sort of added this as well. So just to pick one country, in Tanzania's population, there was 11% that practiced traditional religions. And from what I read concerning this statistic, they were actually saying it was in decline, and that's just due to Christianity and Islam. So in a lot of these countries now, they're either going to Christian belief, some type of Christian belief, or Islam, and so which, if they go into that, it will mean that they'll have to leave a lot of those practices behind. So yeah.
That's something to do with generational.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Where the younger generation don't really hold to it.
Exactly, yeah. And maybe this, because you find, I guess, in a lot of places that this is what the village believes, and then maybe they, like the generations, they've been educated, they're in the cities, or they're doing, they've learned different things, and like, oh, we don't need to, that's old, you know. So there could be that as well. Could be various factors. Again, it's not that clear because there's not a lot of information about it. Some of the origins and structure of it. So there's no centralized founder or written scripture. Again, because it's so diverse, and it's, again, Africa is such a large place. It's multiple countries, multiple tribes and groups. You can't just say it's just one.
Most of that's all
Yeah.
Sahara.
Yeah, that's right. Because of course, the north side will be more the Islam, Islamic influence. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Really all Islamic.
Yeah.
Ethiopia's pretty split.
Yeah.
Between,
It's about 50-50.
but there's probably a small percentage still hold to the traditional witch doctors.
Yeah.
That animistic
Yes. Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. And I guess this again. You would find even with the Northern Africans, like you would find, they're Muslim, but there are these elements of that still sort of fall into their beliefs, and I would say it's also almost the same as probably some of the Christian groups as well. Maybe they still leak into. When I'm saying Christian, I'm not meaning every true Christianity. I think what the world says is Christian,
Yeah.
because of course,
You're right, Simon, because when I was in Fiji, even the people in our church, Fijian people, and they'd say something, and you'd be like, pardon?
yeah,
And it was something that they were holding on to from the original
mm,
religion that they
Yeah.
had.
yeah, and
And you're a Christian, like that's
Mm, mm.
no.
yeah, and that's probably why I included this more so because of all that.
Isn't that also-
Well, it's still like the Irish and the Banshees. And
Yeah, and so it's all around the world really. All these, yeah.
The thing that jumps to mind is one of my foster sons. He didn't talk until he was quite older, and so traditionally they get a pig's tail and wiggle it in the mouth to loosen the tongue. And other things that they do with the umbilical cord that Christian families still
Mm.
do, and it's part of the old religious system.
Mhm.
If you want your son to be a fisherman, you throw his umbilical cord into the ocean. If you want your daughter to be a good wife and housekeeper, then you bury the umbilical cord near the home. And Christian families in independent Baptist churches still doing these things.
Interesting, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I guess that's why even Paul addressed, in his letters about superstitions and things like that, because you can imagine he's going to these Greek cities, pagans, and they would have had practices like that as well, and that sort of reminded me of, like, when looking into this, it's sort of, sure it still happens today, but it sort of feels like you're reading something ancient, and that, but people still do it. So it's interesting. So it's rooted in history, cultural, and the social fabric of diverse ethnic groups, like we just mentioned, in different ways they practice them. It's pluralistic and shaped by oral traditions and passed down. So it's not like I said before, it's not there's no central text or anything like that. It's just something that's passed down through the generations from the elders or whatever the system may have. And
would that be similar to the original Hebrews and the oral tradition?
with the Hebrews, it's a different. It's probably slightly different. It's probably similar, but are you saying the oral tradition when
Before Moses.
before Moses? Okay, it's hard to say what did they have, because they only had the experience of Abraham, obviously prior to that.
Isaac and Jacob.
Yeah, and so just there's a God. That's the God that that Abraham had a covenant with. So how much they knew, not sure, and that's probably reflected in the way they, I guess, in their attitude, and they probably were worshipping some of the Egyptian gods. Most likely they were dealing with a lot of their practices.
How much did God tell Moses?
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's what the whole Torah is now.
Yeah.
What was revealed to Moses and all
Yeah,
that.
but a lot of it's
Yeah,
taken from the oral tradition.
sure. I would say probably maybe the creation account and some of those
Yeah, and
things were passed on.
Abrahamic accounts,
Yeah, yeah,
even down to Joseph.
yeah. There is a interesting. This is now going into the Torah, but there's a word, and it's translated in English as "these are the generations," and so each time I don't know how many times it's mentioned in Genesis. I'm not sure if it's just Genesis or also the rest of the Torah, but basically you can be taken as sections, and you could say with the whole oral tradition, these things were just memorized, and then the next thing, okay, these are the generations of so and so, and it just continues.
Well, the Hebrew Bible
yeah.
doesn't have any chapters.
No. Yeah, that's all been
Really
put in
all
later.
of God.
Yeah. So, for example, the Torah scroll is all of those 5 books.
No,
It's not just Genesis. It's the whole. Yeah. So that's how you should read it, as a whole unit. Yeah. But that's probably a little bit different. But yeah, there would be bits, similarities there to a degree. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, I'm distracted.
Yeah. The other thought, I don't know if it will come up, but the other thought that I got when looking into this was it all had to do with the village, the good of everyone else. So, and I think it might come up. Yeah, I'll just leave it. It might come up. Yeah. So again, it's all oral transmission, the stories, proverbs, songs, rituals, and things. That's all ways in which their teachings or ideas or beliefs are shared. It's like I said, it's very community centered, which makes sense because a lot of this stuff, like for example, when you're mentioning about the umbilical cord being thrown into that's because that's what they are around. That's what they understood. Their livelihood was, especially in the islands, like from the sea, the food source and things like that, and obviously the women at home and the house, and these are all life things that we all need, like necessities of life. And so and again, going back to the whole pagan religions as well, it all has to do with that. We give to the gods these things so we can have good rains and our crops can grow and things like that. And so a lot of these, and so it's all about the community and how they can survive. That's what I sort of gathered from it. Which would go into the whole morals, teachings, what's good, what's bad. What's good for the community. Okay, the view of God. So some, I can't say all of them, but some believe in a supreme God, a creator and a sustainer. But they view him as distant and uninvolved in the daily affairs of their life. And this gets into the whole spiritual side of things. So although they acknowledge that there is some creator out there, they see as these spirits and ancestors as more the ones that they interact with on their for their daily affairs and things like that. And there's various names here. I won't try to say them, but there's various names here for this God or this creator. Again, because Africa's so large, it's going to have various names for different places. Yep. Okay, then you got to a view of spirits. So they believe in natural spirits, so the rivers, trees, mountains, etc., things like that. When I was actually researching it, the whole Aboriginal thing came up as well, and I was almost going to add it in, but it's almost the same thing. Some of what they believe. So it's all territorial spirits as well. So going back to the natural spirits and all the rivers and trees and mountains, they basically just believe those things are inhabited by some type of spirit or spirits, and they hold some significance in those places. So for example, mountains is a big one, not just in African culture, but even in the ancient Near East. in various places, mountains are seen as sacred or a holy site. So you got territorial spirits as well. These are linked to specific locations, which is again a very ancient view, and we find actually this in the Bible a lot of times. For example, Naaman, and how he wanted to take the soil of it, that was in Israel back to his home. A lot of that is the thinking is that this God is of this territory. I'll bring him to my territory, and so that's a lot of the thinking.
That's what happened when the Assyrians drove out Israel and
Yeah.
brought that other people
Yes.
in, and then they were having
Yes.
problems, and they
Yeah.
said, we've got to send someone to Judah to teach us about the God of this land and what he expects of us.
Yeah. Even the boasting of Sennacherib when he was wanting to go into Jerusalem, basically, our gods have, you look into your God to deliver you, our God's gone through all these different regions. Where is the God of this? And he mentions all this list, basically saying our God has defeated all these other gods in these territories, and we're going to do the same here. Obviously, it didn't work out, but it's just interesting. You can see that even in the Bible.
The Hindus, because there's someone who's in India and he's like, the family in India won't leave because their temple's there.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't come to Australia because their God's can't come.
Yeah. No, interesting. Yeah.
So
It's
have
like
to go-
territorial. Yeah. Which is, which is why the Bible, its view of God showing that He's omnipresent, it's such a radical view from in that time frame, because they didn't believe that. Most people just believed it was in certain locations. But yeah, anyway, this is what we find in the African religions as well. They still hold to a lot of this stuff. And basically, they serve as like protective roles in certain spots. And you would find these spots near the borders of things. And so these spirits were given this role as they protect coming in.
So
Ancient Greeks had that as well. Yeah.
So if I know, some other African dude with to come in, what would the spirit do?
Well, I'm guessing they are relying on this spirit to protect them somehow. I'm not sure.
So this is
Yeah.
where all the totems and stuff come in.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, a lot of different. Yeah. So a lot of symbolisms and structures that would.
What would the spirit do to protect it though?
I'm not sure. I didn't get that far. Yeah. Maybe no one lived to tell the tale.
You psychologically believe in these things,
Yeah.
and you go along and do it. It will happen to you.
Yeah. There is that element. Yeah,
It's just
definitely, like a self-fulfilled. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you collapse then and that.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, a lot of these African cultures, I mean, the witch doctor had a very strong hold over the village, and it was nothing but demonic.
Oh yeah.
But that
He
was
didn't tie the line.
the superstition
Yeah.
they believed in. That's what was controlling them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Carrying on. The whole view of ancestors. They believe the dead transition to the spiritual realm and become ancestors that watch over and influence the descendants.
Is that not
Yes.
a Chinese thing? Or is
Yeah, they also have that. I was just going to bring that up as well, because there is a Mongolian community in Brisbane, and I spoke this guy who was a Christian, but he was saying that a lot of these people are still stuck into the old beliefs like this about the ancestors and all this.
They've only got one God, they're not robots.
Yeah.
That's how they're
Yeah.
easily converted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this guy was talking. He was a Christian, but he was mentioning some of the various beliefs that some of the people still hold to. And so these ancestors are few rituals and sacrifices and offerings and things like that. And basically, they do that so they can have favor, like blessing and protection and things like that. And so, and the opposite of if you dishonor the ancestors, is you're going to be cursed and things like that. Okay, the view salvation and harmony. So it's like I mentioned before, it's a community focus. The well-being is tied to the community's unity and adherence to the traditions. harmony with the ancestors and spirits. Again, regular rituals, sacrifices, maintain that good relationship with the spiritual world. Obviously with the hope that they get this blessing and everything works out for them. So that's the beliefs. Some of the practices, again, rituals and ceremonies, again, invoke blessings, ensure harmony with the spiritual world. And a lot of these things are seen in important life stages, so the birth, marriages and deaths and things like that, it'll all invoke these blessings and various things. Sacrifices, so there's animals, again, given to appease the deities or the spirits or the ancestors. Again, protection, healing, blessings, forgiveness, things like that. And then offer that.
So there is a forgiveness element.
I guess the forgiveness would be, well, I've dishonored the ancestors, now I need to atone for that somehow. So I'm in their good graces and they can help me. And it's various structures, shrines, altars, sacred locations and things like that, like I've already mentioned. So that's by way of the practices. There's not many.
Actually, when we went to Ethiopia to pick up Sam, we went around with some American Baptist missionaries. They took us around, and we were going to find the area where Sam was left. We were past. There was a hill in the distance, and it had all these trees on the top. And the missionary said to us, "That's a grove where the animistic peoples come and do their sacrifices."
So that's a good example of the sacred locations and things. Good. Thanks.
Going to Ethiopia was like stepping back into the Bible, just on so many levels. But these groves are still there and very much used.
Oh wow. So it would be interesting to know if they bring this with them. Like, I guess to a certain degree, there are some things, like some of the probably superstitions and beliefs, but how?
Obviously they're not doing animal sacrifices.
Well, as far as we know. But I guess because the population in Australia is probably not as big, so we wouldn't have that. The African groups, but who knows? There's also anything's possible. But anyway, these are some of the practices they have. So some of the Christian responses to this now. Again, their view of God is the same what we looked at before, and it's interesting how many religions believe in. If they believe in a God, well, he's very distant, or it's not a personal being; it's just some force. It's interesting. Seems to be a common.
It doesn't really satisfy, does it? As a human being, that kind of thought.
It doesn't really, because how can you relate to that? Because our experience is personal, it's social, and so how am I supposed to do that with a force? Doesn't and so for us, we believe in a personal relation and is revealed in the person of Jesus Christ, and actively intervenes in the world. Salvation, again, eternal salvation, more than just earthly harmony. It's beyond that. Again, very basic, but some of the responses that we could have. The afterlife, worship is due to God alone, not to ancestors. And some of the counter arguments here that you could have. How can ancestors influence the living if only God is sovereign over? I guess that's sort of the question is assuming, depending on their view of God. But again, it's another question. Why honor ancestors as intermediaries when Jesus is the only mediator between God and humanity? Again, this is probably something that you have to establish with them a bit more. Again, it's just a general question. Spirits, so recognize, the Bible, or Christianity recognizes spiritual beings, but warns against worshipping or engaging with them. And we find that in Deuteronomy, in Ephesians 6. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross replaces the need for sacrifices and offering a once-for-all atonement for sins. So, yes, sure, the Bible is dealing with the Israeli sacrifices and things like that. But in general, if we dealing with someone who's involved with that, you can say, well, you don't need to do that anymore. There's someone who's given the ultimate sacrifice. Yep. And using the terminology has created harmony between us and the Creator. Yeah. So that, again, that's a very short view or look into the African. I guess there could be more information from my research. I was quite limited, so I didn't really find too many. But just give us a short look, a summarized version of what they believe. Okay, and the last thing that we will look at is, again, probably going to be very similar to the New Age thing, but I wanted to sort of bring it up as well. It's probably the child of the New Age, is the spiritual but not religious view. And so this emerged, again, in response. There's no real dating or things like that, but I guess it's more of probably a modern, last maybe 20 to 30 years. Emerged as a response to dissatisfaction with organized religion and institutionalized spirituality. Became more prominent in the late 20th century due to postmodernism, again with the whole relativistic view and influenced by New Age practices and self-help philosophies as well. So it's more like what you were saying earlier about there's people who believe there's some spiritual thing out there, but I don't want to be held to a certain set belief system or
more a lot of agnosticism, I suppose.
Yeah, that'll probably be a part of it as well. Yeah. So basically it is New Age, but people. This is probably the ones that we have spoken about, like that are not adhere to say I'm New Age, but I believe in some type of spiritual thing out there. Yeah, and so they're a bit more. I guess some of them more or less are willing to dabble in different things to experience this spiritual. Some of the cultural and social drivers of.
There's a lot of people that will say to you, I think there's a God or that there's something.
Pretty much everyone at Open Doors that isn't religious is
And that's what it would be like. And
I
that's
think it's more of a thing they say just to say, I'll just go away.
probably.
Not
But-
always. I think generally that's about the extent of their knowledge.
I believe in some higher power somewhere.
I believe there's something.
And I guess this is what sort of I was thinking about in the spiritual but not religious view is, like I believe there's something out there, but they wouldn't identify with a specific group or something like that. And it could be because they don't want to, or it could be the whole New Age influence of my own reality. Basically subjectivity or relativistic view. That could all play a part in it. But it could just be also, it could just be I think I'm going to mention it here, so I'll just go through it. So there's individualism, which is a big thing at the moment, in modern, especially in the Western world. That's, you prioritize personal autonomy, freedom over, constraints.
It's so funny because so many people who claim to be an individual are just following some trend or something.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And no one is truly individual. Like you rely on someone somewhere, for something, and so it's kind of eclecticism. So this is basically allowing individuals to borrow beliefs and practices from various traditions or other beliefs. Again, much like the New Age stuff as well, borrowing all these different views, and it gives sort of for people gives that flexibility, and it might appeal to some, and they can sort of tailor their own spiritual paths. They're not
Eclecticism, that's a new word for me. Can you elaborate on it?
Well, I guess it's a word that's used in various ways, but I guess in the context of this, it's just used as it's like the parts of things. So you can use I guess basically the definition that I sort of gave here was they're just using parts of different things. So in the other time this word is used is a whole different thing, subject.
Just
But
collecting bits and pieces from here.
yeah, so the other way the word is used is different in a whole different subject is in the whole textual criticism of the Bible. So that there's an eclectic view which you can take. There's no one manuscript that exists like that, but you take various bits of different manuscripts to create that Bible, which is a lot of the modern Bibles are like that.
So it just means taking bits and bobs. So
Yeah.
you can have an eclectic, not designing your house, but like, you know, so your furnishings could be a little bit Scandi,
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit, I can't even think now off the top of my head, but all the different styles, all different styles
Yeah.
of furnishing and whatnot.
Mm.
So that's an eclectic look. It's
Yeah.
just a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a word that's kind of not just specific to
Yeah.
religion, but it just means a little bit of everything to suit your taste.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's basically, and so for this context, it would be that they pick from the various religions and groups. Yeah. A distrust of institutions. So, and that could be from a whole range of reasons.
Well, some of the Christian institutions.
Yeah. Well, you do distrust. Yeah. But and which again, when I was looking at that, was sort of, I guess for us, it creates the importance of, again, being Christ-like, reflecting Him, His love, and not allowing our practice of, because you got what the Word of God tells us, but then in any group you have tradition, in any group, and so the danger is allowing those things become the more important thing than what should. Exactly, and every religious group can happen. It can happen to us, and so that can cause a distrust, because then if something happens, then because we're giving more priority to those things, it can cause us to react in that way, and people can get put off from religions and things like that.
So
And
the distrust of institutions with this lot, is that just religious institutions or it's all institutions, so government?
I'm not sure if it's if it's other than religious communities, but I guess this is more limited to, because if they're spiritual experiences, and so in terms of their spiritual life or journey, they don't want to be attached to a religious organisation.
Yes.
So that's probably more, I guess the whole view of the government would be maybe how they view, cause them to believe what they believe about government would be a different, but I guess a big thing is like, I guess the Catholic Church and all the scandals and things that we find, and again, not just from them, but that seems to be the big thing that we always hear. And people say, oh, see, that's why I don't want to be in, because all this happened. Yeah, so people, and again, that's why I was, in my mind, I was thinking how important for us to really reflect Christ and not,
Yes, and the Catholic Church claims to be Christian.
yeah,
And we claim to be Christian.
exactly, and that's why
So we're
people
in the same boat.
associate that, yeah.
That's why I open doors a lot of times when people say, oh, I'm not religious, or no, I'm not religious. I always like to say, oh, don't worry, I'm not religious either.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm like, what? I thought you said you're a Christian. And then you go into
That's
it,
right, yeah.
No, that's different. It's a relationship with God. And then
Yep.
doors open.
which is probably a way you can talk with these type of people, because it's more personal, focus on mental and emotional well-being as well. So again, that's probably going into the whole practice of like yoga, meditation, things like that. And that's, and it seems like people do it. There's sort of two groups. There's people that just do it because they think it's just for exercise, and which you can't really. And then the whole spiritual element, like it makes me feel peaceful and all this. There's some feeling. So yes. And then inclusivity as well. So it avoids dogmatic teachings which appeal to those who feel excluded or alienated by traditional religions. So again, it's another way of allowing whatever you kind of want in your life, and the excuses
Your own
will.
reality.
Yeah. I don't want to be held down by these beliefs. Yeah. So you can see again a strong link to the New Age. Relativism and subjective truth. I won't go too much into that because we already looked at that. Self-directed spirituality. So yeah, basically emphasis on experience over communal or institutional worship. So it's just the individual experience, I went to this mountain or this place and I just connected with this and I had this great spiritual experience here, or just with whatever, And instead of meeting as a church and having that as a group, they don't see that as a...
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
Australians are going off to find themselves.
Yeah. Going,
Lose yourself to find yourself.
yeah.
I'm not sure he loses his life, she'll say.
Yeah, and so, so there is a belief in a God or a higher power, people would say. People say, I believe in a God, but I'm not sure who, which is the whole agnostic sort of thing that Joshua was mentioning about. But a higher power, I believe there's something out there. It's often undefined, impersonal. Just seen as like some abstract universal energy or something. Again, it avoids the traditional notions of God as a personal being. And that's probably because then you're subject to him and you're accountable to him if it's a personal being.
And that's maybe where it all comes from. Some at the heart of all these
Yeah,
religions where God is just a force, or there's no relationship. Because when you are in a relationship with somebody, you become accountable to them.
Yep.
And so maybe that's what they're all trying
Yeah,
to avoid.
that's probably it. Yeah. Okay, and then meditation and mindfulness is another practice. These are again practices now. Holistic healing, again similar to the New Agey stuff. Nature connection, eclectic rituals. Again, they just take various rituals from various groups.
So they're not set rituals.
They're not just set like, maybe I feel like doing, and I guess that's why, because it's such a individualistic or personal thing, you can sort of tailor-made and create, maybe take a bit of, Hinduism, a bit of Buddhism, or some other Eastern belief, and therefore it's synchronistic as well, and just blends all these practices and beliefs together. And so there is a communal participation.
When everyone's doing their own thing.
Yeah, and this is sort of where I got, but there was still an element of it, because there's sort of like informal spiritual groups, like there's sort of like, or communities, probably to what you were mentioning before about the communes. So there's, it's like not formally a organized group per se, but they're still sort of maybe they have similar minds.
Similar to the spiritual church.
Which one's that?
Spiritual.
Oh, yes, yeah. The whole metaphysical church or spiritual church. Yeah, so that's the practices, and then we have the Christian response to these. So again, relativism, which is quite simple to deal with. Truth is objective and found in Christ, is the Christian belief. But then also, just in general, we can, again, we live with absolutes and we live with objective things. The counter question: if truth is personal, how do you determine what is right or wrong in situations involving others? As well, again, with the whole other realities and things. Can subjective truth provide a reliable foundation for life and relationship? Again, we've discussed this already, so it's quite, self-directed spirituality. The Bible warns against self-reliance in spiritual matters. It also the Bible also tells us about the risks involved by being influenced by deceptive spiritual forces as well, which is basically what they can open themselves up to if they're trying to seek these things. And the question here is, if spirituality is entirely self-directed, how do you address blind spots or areas where growth is needed? Because you're really just picking things that you want to work on. You know, you don't have something else telling you, well, there's no standard. So how do you address some of those other issues that you're probably not thinking about or don't want to think about? Whereas you could say the Christian view, we have the Bible, and the Bible addresses multiple topics and subjects, but even that, you have the church community, and typically you have a pastor or you have someone preaching and mentioning various topics and things that may have to do with work, our practices and life. So again, it's not self-directed. It's God uses people. He uses His Word to inform us of areas of that we need to grow in. So the proverb here in Proverb 14, there is a way that seemeth right to man, but the end thereof is the ways of death. So that's what happens when you're self-directed. And then we have rejection of organized religion. So the Christian view is, we believe human institutions can fail, but the Bible teaches the importance of church as God's design for spiritual growth and community. And authentic faith is not about rigid tradition, but a living relationship with Christ. So again, what Jack was talking about when he speaks to these people, it's about a relationship, and not a rigid tradition. Again, something that we need to be careful of always, just keep in mind. Meditation and mindfulness. Meditation is encouraged, but there is a form of meditation in Scripture that is talked about, but it's focused on God's. So it's not like trying to think about nothing. I guess the Buddhist view is trying to, know. I don't know. I heard one person describe it as just try to think about things as clouds just floating past, and then you get to a point where it's just sort of. It was like I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, the Christian view is that we focus on God's word and His character, and that's what the Christian or the biblical meditation is, focusing on those things. And then true peace and clarity comes from God, not from necessarily some experience or that we're looking for. Yes. Okay. Nature connection. So nature reflects God's glory, but is not divine. That's the scriptural view. Worshipping nature leads to idolatry, which we find in Romans 1. And Christians are called to steward nature, but although not to worship it, and we got that in Genesis. So there is a part, but it's not that far of worshipping and things like that. The counter question is, if nature is sacred, how do you define its moral value or role in your life? And does reverence for nature substitute for a relationship with its creator? Because if they believe in a God or how do you reconcile that? Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's what I have. I don't know if you have any questions or anything you want to add to.
These two, not the African one, but the
Yeah.
two by the side of it. I mean, they're sort of like 50, 60 years old, roughly.
Yeah.
And you can see how that kind of thinking has laid the foundation for current thinking, which says things like, if I want to be a tree, I can be a tree.
Yeah.
Or a cat, I can be a cat. Because that's my reality.
Yes.
And you have no right to tell me my reality is not
Exactly.
reality.
Yeah.
This is where you get into the whole transgender movement.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of that, Jack,
Yeah.
It's really been the platform
Yep.
for
Yep.
all of that.
Yes. No. Yeah.
Which
Definitely.
really just comes down to when it's when I want to do what I want.
Yes.
Yeah. And even further, back. You know, you can hold in the 1800s. You can find all the obviously got the evolutionary view coming out, which would undermine sort of people's view of God and what the church has said for 1,000 years, and they seem to unravel that, and then so there's distrust there, and there's people, and then there's a whole growth, especially in the early 1900s as well, with the whole when we looked at the Theosophical Society, the whole they did seances and all these different things like that. So there was a spiritual element. So then you got all this sort of building up, so exactly, it's.
And if we don't, if I'm self-governed, which they both, then I decide. So there are really no natural laws or anything that makes you a man and you a woman. Those lines are all blurred.
That's right. It's all just a construct. Yeah. No, it's good to see how it sort of plays out, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to add this last view, because it shows, again, we can see the New Age sort of views and beliefs and how it sort of made its way into society and its thinking, but also this as well, and it's just leading from. It's good to sort of trace the steps back. Where did this come from? Ultimately, you're going to go back to the garden with the serpent, ultimately, but for us to understand and to know, it's good. It's helpful, I think. Yep.